Good evening, welcome back to Base Christian History. I'm Pastor Matt Littlefield. Tonight I got a very special episode for you. I'm going to do a reading of books 1 and 2 of the Odyssey, and if this goes well, I'm actually planning to do live streaming of the whole book, but not on Monday nights. That's not the plan. The plan will be tonight. I'll do it on our regular streaming time, and then I might pick another time during the week where I can do the rest, or I might just record them and upload them, depending on how it goes, right? So I figured I would do this for a very simple reason. Nolan's movie is out, The Odyssey, and there's a lot of discussion about it. There's a lot of things people like about it, a lot of things people don't like about it. I have zero intention of seeing the movie. I told someone today I would not go see the movie unless someone paid me to, and I'm happy to go if someone paid me to go see it because I used to get paid to clean toilets, and I figure it can't be worse than that, right? But I'm not really interested in seeing it because it fits into this modern Hollywood, not just Hollywood, but this modern storytelling trend of subverting classic stories and using them to push other messages. And I'm just not interested in going to see that. I really am not interested. I do like watching movies. I love watching movies, but I also love the classic stories. And I thought, well, rather than just criticizing the movie, I haven't seen it. I can't give an informed opinion about much in the movie because I've really seen the trailer and I've listened to reviews of people who like it and people who don't like it, but there's not really much I can say about it. So I thought, why not contribute something to the online space which is positive, and that is a reading of the Odyssey. So more about that in a moment. Let me remind you that I do these YouTube live streams, one, because I love teaching the Bible, I love getting into historical topics, doing reaction videos, stuff like that. But also I do it to advertise my readings. Here's my current book, Like a Roaring Lion, which you can pick up on Amazon. If you're overseas, pick it up on Amazon. You can get it as a Kindle edition or as a paperback. If you're in Australia, you can also get it on Amazon, or you can buy it directly from Lock Press. You can also check out my other book, Defending Conscience, which I co-wrote with a friend of mine, Tim Grant, How the Baptists Reminded the World to Defy Tyranny. You can check out my Substack, Rev Matt's writings on Substack, and my blogspot, younggospelminister.blogspot.com, where I put up a lot of my writings and thoughts about different issues. I've even got a couple of blogs on there about my thoughts on what Nolan has done with the Odyssey, just because there is things you can say just from having watched the trailer and looking at the interviews and seeing what he has said. But the translation I'm going to read from tonight is from the late 19th century. You can see it here. It's translated by Samuel Butler. And it does take one particular liberty with the text because the original Odyssey text is in poetic verse. Probably a little bit like the Canterbury Tales, which I actually finished reading today. Took me a while to read it. There are some funny stories in there, some great insights, some great wisdom. There's some fascinating stuff in that ancient book. But what this one does is it turns the poetry into prose, but sticks to the story. And I figure that is much easier for reading online and helping people get engaged in the story. So here's the plan. If you want to, you can pick up a copy of this book. This exact version, the Barnes & Noble leather-bound edition, which is, I think, one of the most beautiful books that I've ever held and ever seen. Look at that. That is a fantastic book. You can pick up this. You can pick it up online, various different bookstores. Or you could go to Amazon and you could probably get or even Gutenberg Press, and you could actually get the translation by Samuel Butler either for free or really cheap because it is from the 19th century. So it is older and quite well known. And a lot of older text, Amazon puts those up for free. If you wanted to follow along and read along with me, you're welcome to do that. Or you can just follow along online. Maybe you're going to listen to this live. Maybe you won't listen to this until you're in the car on the way to work. Maybe you'll listen to it while working out. It's kind of going to be like an audiobook. Well, it literally is an audiobook, right? So tonight we're going to look at books 1 and 2. I've only chosen books 1 and 2 because I'm not exactly sure how long that's going to take. I've got a bit of an estimate, but I want to see how long that takes. And then in future videos, we might do a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on how it goes. But before we get into it, this is Base Christian History, so I'd like to pray, and then we'll get into reading. Lord, we just thank you so much for this opportunity. We thank you for this technology, and we thank you for these ancient stories. And even though this was written in an ancient time by people who did not believe in you, Lord, from a different religion entirely, Lord, there's so many things in this which speak to our modern civilization. So, Lord, as we get into this tonight, we just pray that you would help us to get a renewed love for storytelling and the classic stories which inform the civilization which we come from, which is Western civilization, Lord, one of the greatest civilizations to ever be upon this earth, which has had so much influence from your word, but also, Lord, from so many historical sources. And so, Lord, just be with us. Help this to be a fun time. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, the Odyssey, Book 1. The gods in council agree that the time has come for Odysseus to be brought home to avenge himself on Penelope's suitors and to recover his kingdom. Hermes is sent to Calypso's isle to bid her release the captive Odysseus. Athene, disguised as Mentes, appears to Telemachus, advising him to call an assembly of the men of Ithaca to complain of the behavior of the suitors, then going himself in quest of his father to Pylos and Sparta. That's the introduction. Tell me, O Muse, of that ingenious hero who travelled far and wide after he sacked the famous town of Troy. Many cities did he visit, and many were the nations with whose manner and customs he was acquainted. Moreover, he suffered much by sea while trying to save his own life and bring his men safely home. But do what he might, he could not have his men, for they perished through their sheer folly in eating the cattle of the sun god Hyperion. So the god prevented them from ever reaching home. Tell me, too, about all these things, O daughter of Zeus, from whatever source you may know them. So all who escaped death in battle or by shipwreck had got safely home except Odysseus, and he, though he was longing to return to his wife and country, was detained by the goddess Calypso, who had got him into a large cave and wanted to marry him. But as years went by, there came a time when the gods settled that he should go back to Ithaca. Even then, however, when he was among his own people, his troubles were not yet over. Nevertheless, all the gods had now begun to pity him except Poseidon, who still persecuted him without ceasing and would not let him go home. Now Poseidon had gone off to the Ethiopians, who are at the world's end and lie in two halves, the one looking west and the other east. He had gone there to accept a hecatomb of sheep and oxen and was enjoying himself at his festival. But the other gods met in the house of Olympian Zeus, and the sire of gods and men first spoke. At that moment he was thinking of Aegisthus, who had been killed by Agamemnon's son Orestes. So he said to the other gods, See now, how men lay blame upon us gods for what is after all nothing but their own folly. Look at Aegisthus. He must needs make love to Agamemnon's wife unrighteously and then kill Agamemnon, though he knew it would be the death of him. For I sent Hermes to warn him not to do either of these things, inasmuch as Orestes would be sure to take his revenge when he grew up and wanted to return home. Hermes told him this in all good will, but he would not listen, and now he is paid for everything in full. Then Athene said, Father, son of Cronus, king of kings, it served Aegisthus right, and so it would anyone who does as he did. But Aegisthus is neither here nor there. It is for Odysseus that my heart bleeds. When I think of his sufferings in that lonely sea-girt island, far away, poor man, from all his friends. It is an island covered with forest in the very middle of the sea, and a goddess lives there, daughter of the magician Atlas, who looks after the bottom of the ocean and carries the great columns that keep heaven and earth asunder. This daughter of Atlas has got hold of poor unhappy Odysseus and keeps trying every kind of blandishment to make him forget his home, so that he is tired of life and thinks of nothing but how he may once more see the smoke of his own chimneys. You, sir, take heed of this. And yet when Odysseus was before Troy, did he not propitiate you with many a burnt sacrifice? Why then do you keep being so angry with him? And Zeus said, My child, what are you talking about? How can I forget Odysseus, than whom there is no more capable man on earth, nor more liberal in his offerings to the immortal gods that live in heaven? Bear in mind, however, that Poseidon is still furious with Odysseus for having blinded an eye of Polyphemus, king of Cyclopes. Polyphemus is son to Poseidon by the nymph Thoosa, daughter to the sea king Porphus. Therefore, though he will not kill Odysseus outright, he torments him by preventing him from getting home. Still, let us lay our heads together and see how we can help him to return. Poseidon will then be pacified, for if we are all of one mind, he can hardly stand against us. And Athene said, Father, son of Cronus, king of kings, if then the gods now mean that Odysseus should go home, we should first send Hermes to the Augean island to tell Calypso that we have made up our minds, and that he is is to return. In the meantime, I will go to Ithaca, put heart into Odysseus' son Telemachus. I will embolden him to call the Achaeans in assembly and speak out the suitors of his mother Penelope, who persist in eating up number of sheep and oxen. I will also conduct him to Sparta and to Pylos to see if he can hear anything about the return of his dear father, for this will make people speak well of him. So saying, she bound on her glittering golden sandals imperishable, with which she can fly like the wind over land or sea. She grasped a redoubtable bronze-shod spear, so stout and sturdy and strong, wherewith she quells the rank of heroes who has displeased her. And down she darted from the topmost summits of Olympus, whereon forthwith she was in Ithaca, at the gateway of Odysseus' house, disguised as a suitor. Mentes, chief of the Taphians, and she held a bronze spear in her hand. There she found the lordly suitors seated on hides of the oxen which they had killed and eaten, and playing draughts in front of the house. Men servants and pages were bustling about to wait upon them, some mixing wine with water in the mixing bowls, some cleaning down the tables with wet sponges and laying them out again, and some cutting great quantities of meat. Telemachus saw her long before anyone else did. He was sitting moodily among the suitors, thinking about his brave father, and how he would send them flying out of the house if he were to come to his own again and be honoured as in days gone by. Thus brooding, as he sat among them, he caught sight of Athene and went straight to the gate, for he was vexed that a stranger should be kept waiting for admittance. He took her right hand in his own and bade her give him her spear. Welcome, said he, to our house, and when you have partaken of food, you should tell us what you have come for. He led the way as he spoke, and Athene followed him. When they were within, he took her spear and set it in the spear stand against a strong bearing post, along with many other spears of his unhappy father. And he conducted her to a richly decorated seat, under which he threw a cloth of damask. There was a footstool also near her feet, and he set another seat near for herself, away from the suitors, that she might not be annoyed while eating by their noise and insolence, and that he might ask her more freely about his father. The maidservant then brought them water in a beautiful golden ewer, and poured it into a silver basin for them to wash their hands. And as she drew a clean table beside them, an upper servant brought them bread, and offered them many good things of what there was in the house. The carver fetched them plates of all manner of meats, and set cups of gold by their side, and a manservant brought them wine and poured it out for them. Then the suitors came in, and took their places on the benches and seats. Forthwith men servants poured water over their hands. Maids went round with bread baskets. Pages filled with mixing bowls with wine and water. And they laid their hands upon the good things that were before them. As soon as they had enough to eat and drink, they wanted music and dancing, which are the crowning embellishments of a banquet. So a servant brought a lyre to Phoebus, whom they compelled perforce to sing to them. As soon as he touched his lyre and began to sing, Telemachus spoke to Athene with his head close to hers, that no men might hear. I hope, sir, said he, that you will not be offended with what I am going to say. Singing comes cheap to those who do not pay for it, and all this is done at the cost of one whose bones lie rotting in some wilderness or grinding to the powder in the surf. If these men were to see my father come back to Ithaca, they would pray for longer legs rather than a longer purse, for money would not serve them. But he, alas, has fallen on an ill fate. And even when people do sometimes say that he is coming, we no longer heed them. We shall never see him again. And now, sir, tell me, and tell me true, who are you and where you come from? Tell me of your towns and parents, what manner of ship you came in, how your crew brought you to Ithaca, and what nation they declared themselves to be. For you cannot have come by land. Tell me also truly, for I want to know, are you a stranger to this house, or have you been here in my father's time? In the old days we had many visitors, for my father went about much himself. And Athene answered, I will tell you truly and particularly all about it. I am Mentes, son of Anchialus, and I am king of the Taphians. I have come here with my ship and crew on a voyage to men of a foreign tongue, being bound for Temesia with a cargo of iron, and I shall bring back copper. As for my ship, it lies over yonder, off the open country, away from the town, in the harbour Rathron, under the wooded mountain Neriton. Our fathers were friends before us, as old Laertes will tell you if you will go and ask him. They say, however, that he never comes to town now, and lives by himself in the country, faring hardly with an old woman, to look after him and get his dinner for him. When he comes in tired from pottering about his vineyard, They told me your father was at home again, and that was why I came. But it seems the gods are keeping him back, for he is not dead yet. Not on the mainland. It is more likely he is on some sea-girt island in mid-ocean, or a prisoner among savages who are detaining him against his will. I am no prophet, and know very little about omens, but I speak as it is borne in upon me from heaven, and assure you that he will not be away much longer. For he is a man of such resource that even though he were in chains of iron, he would find some means of getting home again. But tell me, and tell me true, can Odysseus really have such a fine-looking fellow for a son? You are indeed wonderfully like him about the head and eyes, for we were close friends before he set sail for Troy, where the flower of all the Argives went also. Since that time we have neither of us seen the other. My mother, answered Telemachus, tells me I'm son to Odysseus, but it is a wise child that knows his own father. Would that I were a son to one who had grown old upon his own estates, for since you ask me, there is no more ill-starred man under heaven than he who they tell me is my father. And Athene said, there is no fear of your race dying out yet, while Penelope has such a fine son as you are. But tell me, and tell me true, what is the meaning of all this feasting, and who are these people? What is it all about? Have you some banquet, or is there a wedding in the family? For no one seems to be bringing any provisions of his own. And the guest, how atrociously they are behaving, what riot they make over the whole house. It is enough to disgust any respectable person who comes near them. Sir, said Telemachus, as regards your question, so long as my father was here, it was well with us and with the house. But the gods, in their displeasure, have willed it otherwise, and have hidden him away more closely than mortal man was ever yet hidden. I could have borne it better, even though he were dead, if he had fallen with his men before Troy, or had died with his friends around him when the days of his fighting were done. For then the Achaeans would have built a mound over his ashes, and I should myself have been heir to his renown. But now the storm winds have spirited him away, we know not whither. He is gone without leaving so much as a trace behind him, and I inherit nothing but dismay. Nor does the matter end with the grief for the loss of my father. Heaven has laid sorrows upon me of yet another kind, for the chiefs from all lands, Dulichium, Same, and the woodland island of Zacynthus, as also all the principal men of Ithaca itself, are eating up my house under the pretext of paying their court to my mother, who will neither point blank say that she will not marry, nor yet bring matters to an end, so they are making havoc of my estate, and before long will do so also with myself. Is that so? Exclaimed Athene. Then you do indeed want Odysseus home again. Give him his helmet, shield, and a couple of lances. And if he is the man he was when I first knew him in our house, drinking and making merry, he would soon lay his hands about these rascally suitors were he to stand once more upon his own threshold. He was then coming from Ephria, where he had been to beg poison for his arrows from Ilus, son of Mermius. Ilus feared the ever-living gods, and would not give him any, but my father let him have some, for he was very fond of him. If Odysseus is the man he then was, these suitors will have a short shrift and a sorry wedding. But there, it rests with heaven to determine whether he is to return and take his revenge in his house or no. I would, however, urge you to set about trying to get rid of these suitors at once. Take my advice. Call the Achaeans heroes in assembly tomorrow morning. Lay your case before them, and call heaven to bear you witness. Bid the suitors take themselves off, each to his own place. And if your mother's mind is set on marrying again, let her go back to her father, who will find her a husband and provide her with all the marriage gifts that so dear a daughter may expect. As for yourself, let me prevail upon you to take the best ship you can get with a crew of 20 men and go in quest of your father who has so long been missing. Someone may tell you something, or, and people often hear things in this way, some heaven-sent message may direct you. First go to Pylus and ask Nestor, then go on to Sparta and visit Menelaus, for he got home last of all of the Achaeans. If you hear that your father is alive and on his way home, you can put up with the waste these suitors will make for yet another 12 months. If, on the other hand, you hear of his death, come home at once. Celebrate his funeral rites with all due pomp. Build a barrow to his memory and make your mother marry again. Then, having done all this, think it well over in your mind how by fair means or foul you may kill these suitors in your own house. You are too old to plead infancy any longer. Have you not heard how people are singing Orestes' praises for having killed his father's murderer, Agathias? You are a fine, smart-looking fellow. Show your mettle then, and make yourself a name and story. Now, however, I must go back to my ship and to my crew, who will be impatient if I keep them waiting longer. Think the matter over for yourself, and remember what I have said to you. Sir, answered Telemachus, it has been very kind of you to talk to me in this way, as though I were your own son, and I will do all you tell me. I know you want to be getting on with your voyage, but stay a little longer till you have taken a bath and refreshed yourself. I will then give you a present, and you shall go on your way rejoicing. I will give you one of great beauty and value, a keepsake such as only dear friends give to one another. Athene answered, do not try to keep me, for I would be on my way at once. As for my present, you may be disposed to make me. Keep it till I come again, and I will take it home with me. You shall give me a very good one, and I will give you one of no less value in return. With these words she flew away like a bird into the air, but she had given Telemachus courage, and had made him think more than ever about his father. He felt the change, wondered at it, and knew that the stranger had been a god, so he went straight to where the suitors were sitting. Phemius was still singing, and his hearers sat wrapped in silence as he told the sad tale of the return from Troy, and the ills Athene had laid upon the Achaeans. Penelope, daughter of Icarius, heard his song from her room upstairs, and came down by the great staircase, not alone, but attended by two of her handmaids. When she reached the suitors, she stood by one of the bearing posts that supported the roof of the cloisters, with a staid maiden on either side of her. She held a veil, moreover, before her face, and was weeping bitterly. Phemius, she cried, you know many another feat of gods and heroes, such as poets love to celebrate. Sing the suitors some one of these, and let them drink their wine in silence, but cease this sad tale, for it breaks my sorrowful heart, and reminds me of my lost husband, whom I mourn ever without ceasing, and whose name was great over all Hellas and middle Argos. Mother, answered Telemachus, let the bards sing what he has in mind, too. Bards do not make the ills they sing of. It is Zeus, not they, who makes them, and who sends weal or woe upon mankind according to his own good pleasure. This fellow means no harm by singing the ill-fated return of the Danaans, for people always applaud the latest songs most warmly. Make up your mind to it and bear it. Odysseus is not the only man who never came back from Troy, but many other went down as well as he. Go then within the house and busy yourself with your daily duties, your loom, your distaff, and the ordering of your servants, for speech is a man's matter, and mine above all others, for it is I who am master here. She went wandering back into the house, and laid her son saying in her heart. Then going upstairs with her handmaids into her room, she mourned her dear husband till Athene shed sweet sleep over her eyes. But the suitors were clamorous throughout the covered cloisters, and prayed each one that he might be her bedfellow. Then Telemachus spoke. Shameless, he cried, and insolent suitors, let us feast at our pleasure now, and let there be no brawling. For it is a rare thing to hear a man with such a divine voice as Phemius has. But in the morning meet me in full assembly, that I may give you formal notice to depart, and feast at one another's houses, turn about at your own cost. If on the other hand you choose to persist in sponging upon one man, heaven help me! But Zeus shall reckon with you in full, and when you fall in my father's house, there shall be no man to avenge you. The suitors bit their lips as they heard him, and marveled at the boldness of his speech. Then Antonius, son of Eupeithes, said, the gods seem to have given you lessons in bluster and tall talking. May Zeus never grant you to be chief in Ithaca, as your father was before you. Telemachus answered, Antonius, do not chide with me, but, God willing, I will be chief too if I can. Is this the worst fate you can think of me? It is no bad thing to be a chief, for it brings both riches and honor. Still now that Odysseus is dead, there are many great men in Ithaca, both old and young, and some other may take the lead among them. Nevertheless, I will be chief in my own house, and will rule those whom Odysseus has won for me. Then Eurymachus, son of Polybius, answered, It rests with heaven to decide who shall be chief among us. But you shall be master in your own house and over your own possessions. While there is a man in Ithaca, no one shall do you violence or rob you. And now, my good fellow, I want you to know about this stranger. What country does he come from? Of what family is he? Where is his estate? Has he brought you news about the return of your father, or was he on his own business? He seemed to be a well-to-do man, but he hurried off so suddenly that he was gone in a moment before we could get to know him. My father is dead and gone, answered Telemachus. And even if some rumor reaches me, I put no more faith in it now. My mother does indeed sometimes send for a soothsayer and question him, but I give his prophesyings no heed. As for the stranger, he was Mentis, son of Anchilius, chief of the Taphians, an old friend of my father's. But in his heart he knew it had been the goddess. The suitors then returned to their singing and dancing until evening. But when night fell upon their pleasuring, they went home to bed, each in his own abode. Telemachus's room was high up in a tower that looked on to the outer court. Hither then he hied, brooding and full of thought. A good old woman, Euryclea, daughter of Ops, the son of Pisenor, went before him with a couple of blazing torches. Laertes had brought her with his own money when she was quite young. He gave the worth of 20 oxen for her and showed as much respect to her and his household as he did to his own wedded wife. But he did not take her to his bed, for he feared his wife's resentment. She it was who now lighted Telemachus to his room, and she loved him better than any of the other women in the house did, for she had nursed him when he was a baby. He opened the door of his bedroom and sat down upon the bed. As he took off his shirt, he gave it to the good old woman, who folded it up tidily and hung it for him over a peg by his bedside. After which she went out, pulled the door by a silver catch, and drew the bolt home by means of the strap. But Telemachus, as he lay covered with woolen fleece, kept thinking all night through of his intended voyage and of the counsel that Athene had given him. Book 2. I'm not going to read the introductions to the chapters. I'm just going to read the text from here on in. Now when the child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn, appeared, Telemachus rose and dressed himself. He bound his sandals onto his comely feet, girded his sword about his shoulder, and left his room looking like an immortal god. He at once sent the criers round to call the people in assembly. So they called them, and the people gathered thereon. Then, when they were got together, he went to the place of assembly, spear in hand, not alone, for his 2 hounds went with him. Athene endowed him with a presence of such divine comeliness that all marveled at him as he went by. And when he took his place in his father's seat, even the oldest counselors made way for him. Egyptus, a man bent double with age and of infinite experience, was the first to speak. His son Antiphus had gone with Odysseus to Ilium, land of noble steeds. But the savage Cyclops had killed him when they were all shut up in the cave, and had cooked his last dinner for him. He had 3 sons left, of whom 2 still worked on his father's land, while the third, Eurynomus, was one of the suitors. Nevertheless, their father could not get over the loss of Antiphus, and was still weeping for him when he began his speech. Men of Ithaca, he said, hear my words. From the day Odysseus left us, there has been no meeting of our counselors until now. Who then can it be, whether old or young, that finds it so necessary to convene us? Has he got wind of some host approaching? And does he wish to warn us? Or would he speak upon some other matter of public moment? I am sure he is an excellent person, and I hope Zeus will grant him his heart's desire. Telemachus took his speech as of good omen, and rose at once, for he was bursting with what he had to say. He stood in the middle of the assembly, and the good herald Pisenor brought him his staff. Then turning to Egyptus, Sir, said he, it is I, as you will shortly learn, who have convened you, for it is I who am the most aggrieved. I have not got wind of any host approaching about which I would warn you, nor is there any matter of public moment on which I would speak. My grievance is purely personal, and turns on 2 great misfortunes which have fallen upon my house. The first is the loss of my excellent father, who was chief among you all here present, and was like a father to every one of you. The second is much more serious, and ere long will be the utter ruin of my estate. The sons of all the chief men among you are pestering my mother to marry them against her will. They are afraid to go to her father Icarius, asking him to choose the one he likes best and to provide marriage gifts for his daughter. But day by day, they keep hanging about my father's house, sacrificing our oxen, sheep, and fat goats for their banquets, and never giving so much thought to the quantity of wine as they drink. No estate can stand such recklessness. We have now no Odysseus to ward off harm from our doors, and I cannot hold my own against them. I shall never all my days be as good a man as he was. Still, I would indeed defend myself if I had the power to do so, for I cannot stand such treatment any longer. My house is being disgraced and ruined. Have respect, therefore, to your own consciences and to public opinion. Fear, too, the wrath of heaven, lest the gods should be displeased and turn upon you. I pray you by Zeus and Themis, who is the beginning and the end of counsels, do not hold back, my friends, and leave me single-handed, unless it be that my brave father Odysseus did some wrong to the Achaeans, which you would now avenge on me by aiding and abetting these suitors. Moreover, if I am to be eaten out of house and home at all, I had rather you did the eating yourselves, for I could then take action against you to some purpose, and serve you with notices from house to house till I got paid in full, whereas now I have no remedy. With this, Telemachus dashed his staff to the ground and burst into tears. Everyone was very sorry for him, but they all sat still, and no one ventured to make him an angry answer, save only Antinous, who spoke thus. Telemachus, insolent braggart that you are, how dare you try to throw the blame upon us suitors? It is your mother's fault, not ours, for she is a very artful woman. These 3 years past and close on 4, she has been driving us out of our minds by encouraging each one of us and sending him messages without meaning one word of what she says. And then there was that other trick she played us. She set up a great tambour frame in her room and began to work on an enormous piece of fine needlework. Sweetheart, she said, Odysseus is indeed dead. Still, do not press me to marry again immediately. Wait, for I would not have my skill in needlework perish unrecorded till I have completed a pall for the hero Laertes, to be in readiness against the time when his death shall take him. He is very rich, and the women of the place will talk if he is laid out without a pall. This was what she said, and we assented. Whereon we could see her working on her great web all day long, but at night she would unpick the stitches again by torchlight. She fooled us in this way for 3 years, and we never found her out. But as time wore on, and as she was now in her 4th year, one of her maids who knew what she was doing told us, and we caught her in the act of undoing her work, so she had to finish it whether she would or no. The suitors therefore make you this answer, that both you and the Achaeans may understand. Send your mother away, and bid her marry the man of her own and of her father's choice. For I do not know what will happen if she goes on plaguing us much longer with the airs she gives herself on the score of accomplishments Athena has taught her, and because she is so clever. We never yet heard of such a woman. We all know about Tyro, Alcmena, Mycenae, and the famous women of old, but they were nothing to your mother, any one of them. It was not fair of her to treat us in that way, and as long as she continues in the mind with which heaven has now endowed her, so long shall we go on eating up your estate, and I do not see why we should change, for she gets all the glory and honor, and it is you who pay for it, not she. Understand then, that we will not go back to our lands, neither here nor elsewhere, till she has made her choice and married some one or other of us. Telemachus answered, Antinous, how can I drive the mother who bore me from my father's house? My father is abroad, and we do not know whether he is alive or dead. It will be hard on me if I have to pay Icarius the large sum which I must give him if I insist on sending his daughter back to him. Not only will he deal rigorously with me, but heaven will also punish me. For my mother, when she leaves the house, will call on the Furies to avenge her. Besides, it would not be a credible thing to do, and I will have nothing to say to it. If you choose to take offense at this, leave the house and feast elsewhere at one another's house at your own cost. Turn and turn about. If, on the other hand, you elect to persist in sponging upon one man, heaven help me, but Zeus shall reckon with you in full, and when you fall in my father's house, there shall be no man to avenge you." As he spoke, Zeus sent 2 eagles from the top of the mountains, and they flew on and on with the wind, sailing side by side in their lordly flight. When they were right over the middle of the assembly, they wheeled and circled about, beating the air with their wings and glaring death into the eyes of them that were below. Then, fighting fiercely and tearing at one another, they flew off towards the right over the town. The people wondered as they saw them, and asked each other what all this might be. Whereon Halitherses, who was the best prophet and reader of omens among them, spoke to them plainly and in all honesty, saying, "Hear me, men of Ithaca, and I speak more particularly to the suitors, for I see mischief brewing for them. Odysseus is not going to be away much longer. Indeed, he is close at hand to deal out death and destruction. Not on them alone, but on many another of us who live in Ithaca. Let us then be wise in time and put a stop to this wickedness before he comes. Let the suitors do so of their own accord. It will be better for them. For I am not prophesying without due knowledge. Everything has happened to Odysseus as I foretold when the Argives sent out for Troy and he was with them. I said that after going through much hardship and losing all his men, he should come home again in the 20th year, and no one would know him. Now all this is coming true." Eurymachus, son of Polybius, then said, "Go home, old man, and prophesy to your own children, or it may be worse for them. I can read these omens myself much better than you can. Birds are always flying about in the sunshine somewhere or another, but they seldom mean anything. Odysseus has died in a far country, and it is a pity that you are not dead along with him. Instead of prating here about omens and adding fuel to the anger of Telemachus, which is fierce enough as it is, I suppose you think he will give you something for your family. But I tell you, and it shall surely be, when an old man like you, who should know better, talks to a young one over till he becomes troublesome, in the first place his young friend will only fare so much the worse. He will take nothing by it, for the suitors will prevent this. And in the next, we will lay a heavier fine, sir, upon yourself than you will at all like pain, for it will bear hardly upon you. As for Telemachus, I warn him in the presence of you all to send his mother back to her father, who will find her a husband and provide her with all the marriage gifts so dear a daughter may expect. Till then, we shall go on harassing him with our suit, for we fear no man, and neither care for him, with all his fine speeches, nor for any fortune-telling of yours. You may preach as much as you please, but we shall only hate you the more. We shall go back and continue to eat up Telemachus' estate without paying him, till such a time as his mother leaves off tormenting us by keeping us day after day on the tiptoe of expectation, each vying with the other in his suit for a prize for such rare perfection. Besides, we cannot go after the other woman whom we should marry in due course, but for the way in which she treats us." Then Telemachus said, "Eurymachus and you other suitors, I shall say no more, and entreat you no further, for the gods and the people of Ithaca now know my story. Give me then a ship and a crew of 20 men to take me hither and thither, and I will go to Sparta and to Pylos in quest of my father, who has long been missing. Someone may tell me something, or, and people often hear things this way, some heaven-sent message may direct me. If I can hear of him as alive and on his way home, I will put up with the waste you suitors will make for yet another 12 months. If, on the other hand, I hear of his death, I will return at once, celebrate his funeral rites with all due pomp, build a barrow to his memory, and make my mother marry again." With these words he sat down. A mentor who had been a friend of Odysseus and had long been in charge of everything with full authority over the servants rose to speak. He then plainly and with all honesty addressed him thus: "Hear me, men of Ithaca. I hope that you may never have a kind and well-disposed ruler any more, nor one who will govern you equitably. I hope that all your chiefs henceforth may be cruel and unjust, for there is not one of you but has forgotten Odysseus, who ruled you as though he were your father. I am not half so angry with the suitors, for if they choose to do violence in the naughtiness of their hearts and wager their heads that Odysseus will not return, they can take the high hand and eat up his estate. But as for you others, I am shocked at the way in which you all sit still without even trying to stop such scandalous goings-on, which you could do if you chose, for you are many, and they are few. Leocritus, son of Evenor, answered him, saying, Mentor, what folly is all this, that you should set the people to stay on us? It is a hard thing for one man to fight with many about his victuals. Even though Odysseus himself were to set upon us while we are feasting in his house, and do his best to oust us, his wife, who wants him back so very badly, and would have small cause for rejoicing, and his blood be upon his own head to be fought against such great odds. There is no sense in what you have been saying. Now, therefore, do you people go about your business, and let his father's older friends, Mentor and Halitherses, speed the boy on his journey, if he goes at all, which I do not think he will, for he is more likely to stay where he is still someone comes and tells him something. Unless he broke up the assembly, and every man went back to his town, back to his own abode, while the suitors returned to the house of Odysseus. Then Telemachus went all by the seaside, and washed his hands in the grey waves, and prayed to Athene. Hear me, he cried, you God who visited me yesterday, and bade me sail the seas in search of my father who has long been missing. I would obey you, but the Achaeans, and more particularly the wicked suitors, are hindering me that I cannot do so. And he thus prayed. Athene came close up to him in the likeness and with the voice of Mentor. Telemachus, said she, if you are made of the same stuff as your father, you will be neither fool nor coward henceforth. For Odysseus neither broke his word nor left his work half done. If then you take after him, your voyage will not be fruitless. But unless you have the blood of Odysseus and of Penelope in your veins, I see no likelihood of you succeeding. Sons are seldom as good men as their fathers. They are generally worse, not better. Still, as you are not going to be either fool or coward henceforward, and are not entirely without some show of your father's wise discernment, I look with hope upon your undertaking. But mind you never make common cause with any of these foolish suitors, for they have neither sense nor virtue, and give no thought to the death and to the doom that will shortly fall on one and all of them, so that they shall perish on the same day. As for your voyage, it shall not be long delayed. Your father was such an old friend of mine that I will find you a ship and will come with you myself. Now, however, return home and go about among the suitors. Begin getting provisions ready for your voyage. See everyone well stowed, the wine in jars and the barley meal, which is the staff of life, in leathern bags. Will I go round the town and beat up volunteers at once? There are many ships in Ithaca, both old and new. I will run my eye over them for you and will choose the best. We will get her ready and will put out to sea without delay. Thus spoke the daughter of Zeus. And Telemachus lost no time in doing as the goddess told him. He went moodily home and found the suitors flaying goats and singeing pigs in the outer court. Antonius came up to him at once and laughed as he took his hand in his own, saying, Telemachus, my fine fire-eater, bear no more ill blood, neither in word nor deed, but eat and drink with us as you used to. The Achaeans will supply you with everything, a ship and a picked crew to boot, so that you can sail for Pylos at once and get news of your noble father. Antonius, answered Telemachus, I cannot eat in peace, nor take pleasure of any kind with such men as you are. Was it not enough that you should waste so much good property of mine while I was yet a boy? Now that I am older and know about it, I am also stronger, and whether here among this people or by going to Pylos, I will do you all the harm I can. I shall go, and my going shall not be in vain, though, thanks to you suitors, I have neither ship nor crew of my own, and must be passenger, not captain. As he spoke, he snatched his hand from Antonius. Meanwhile, the others went on getting dinner ready about the building, steering him tauntingly as they did so. Telemachus, said one youngster, means to be the death of us. I suppose he thinks he can bring friends to help him from Pylos or again from Sparta, where he seems to be bent on going. Or he will go to Epiaphra as well for poison to put in our wine and kill us. Another said, perhaps if Telemachus goes on board a ship, he will be like his father and perish far from his friends. In this case, we should have plenty to do, for we could then divide up his property among us. As for the house, we can let his mother and the man who marries her have that. This was how they talked. But Telemachus went down into the lofty and spacious storeroom where his father's treasure of gold and bronze lay heaped upon the floor, and where the linen and spare clothes were kept in oaken chests. Here too there was a store of fragrant olive oil, or cask of old, well-ripened wine, unbledded and fit for a god to drink, were ranged against the wall in case Odysseus should come home again after all. The room was closed with well-made doors opening in the middle. Moreover, the faithful old housekeeper, Euryclea, daughter of Ops, the son of Pisenor, was in charge of everything both day and night. Telemachus called her to the storeroom and said, "Nurse, draw me off some of the best wine you have, after what you are keeping for my father's own drinking, in case, poor man, he should escape death and find his way home again after all. Let me have 12 jars, and see that they all have lids. Also fill me some well-sewn leathern bags with barley meal, about 20 measures in all. Get these things put together at once, and say nothing about it. I'll take everything this evening as soon as my mother has gone upstairs for the night. I'm going to Sparta and to Pylos to see if I can hear anything about the return of my dear father." When Euryclea heard this, she began to cry, and spoke fondly to him, saying, "My dear child, whatever can have put such a notion as that into your head? Where in the world do you want to go to, you who are the one hope of the house? Your poor father is dead and gone in some foreign country, nobody knows where. And as soon as your back is turned, these wicked ones here will be scheming to get you put out of the way, and will share all your possessions among themselves. Stay where you are among your own people, and do not go wandering and worrying your life out on the barren ocean." "Fear not, nurse," answered Telemachus. "My scheme is not without heaven's sanction. But swear that you will say nothing about all this to my mother, till I have been away for some 10 or 12 days, unless she hears of my having gone and asks you, for I do not want her to spoil her beauty by crying." The old woman swore most solemnly that she would not. And when she had completed her oath, she began drawing off the wine into jars, and getting the barley meal into the bags, while Telemachus went back to the suitors. Then Athene bethought her of another matter. She took his shape, and went around the town to each one of the crew, telling them to meet at the ship by sundown. She went also to Nomian, son of Phronius, and asked him to let her have a ship, which he was very ready to do. When the sun had set, and darkness was all over the land, she got the ship into the water, put all the tackle on board that her ships generally carry, and stationed her at the end of the harbour. Presently the crew came up, and the goddess spoke encouragingly to each of them. Furthermore, she went to the house of Odysseus, and threw the suitors into a deep slumber. She caused their drink to fuddle them, and made them drop their cups from their hands, so that instead of sitting over their wine, they went back into the town to sleep, with their eyes heavy and full of drowsiness. Then she took the form and voice of Mentor and called Telemachus to come outside. "Telemachus," said she, "the men are on board and at their oars, waiting for you to give your orders. So make haste, and let us be off." On this day she led the way, while Telemachus followed in her steps. When they got to the ship, they found the crew waiting by the waterside, and Telemachus said, "Now, my men, help me get the stores on board. They are all put together in the cloister, and my mother does not know anything about it, nor any of the maidservants except one." With all these words, he led the way, and the others followed after. When they had brought the things as he told them, Telemachus went on board. Athene got before him, and taking her seat in the stern of the vessel, while Telemachus sat beside her. Then the men loosed the hawsers and took their places on the benches. Athene sent them a fair wind from the west that whispered over the deep blue waves, whereupon Telemachus told them to catch hold of the ropes and hoist sail, and they did as he told them. They set in the mast in its socket in the crossplank, raised it, and made it fast with the forestays. Then they hoisted their white sails aloft with ropes of twisted oxhide. As the sail bellied out with the wind, the ship flew through the deep blue water, and the foam hissed against her bows as she sped onward. Then they made all fast throughout the ship, filling the mixing bowls to the brim, and made drink offerings to the immortal gods that are from everlasting, but more particularly to the grey-eyed daughter of Zeus. Thus, then, the ship sped on her way through the watches of the night, from dark till dawn. That is the end of Book 2. The Odyssey, a reading. I'm Pastor Matt Littlefield. This is Base Christian History. I hope you had a good time listening to this. Let me know in the comments what you think. I might need to work on some of those Greek names in future episodes, but I did the best I can. It's a little bit like reading an Old Testament passage in church. You got to pick up the names on the fly. But I hope you enjoyed this tonight. I actually am looking forward to reading this whole story again. I've actually read the abridged version before. I read the Iliad in this book, and I didn't read the Odyssey in this book yet because I read the abridged version a couple of years ago in another book, and I thought, I don't need to read it again yet. But the fact that the movies come out, and there's all this discussion about the story online, I thought it might be a fun journey to go on, to look at the Odyssey. You know, the Odyssey is such a iconic story. It's actually a genre of its own. And some of the other great Odyssey stories, you've got The Fellowship of the Ring, which is based off the idea of an Odyssey. You've got something like Homeward Bound, which was a kid's movie about a dog trying to get home. You've got stuff like Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. You've got the high art, and you've got these simple family stories and these comedy stories. This whole genre of the Odyssey was inspired by the original. Remember, you can check out my books on Amazon, Like a Roaring Lion, or at lockpress.com if you're in Australia. Check out my blog, younggospelminister.blogspot.com, or you can also check out my writings on Substack. It's been really fun doing this reading with you tonight. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys again next time.
Joy again.